Aloha. Good afternoon. This is Andrew Aloha live out of Tucson, Arizona with Spiritual Homes Productions on Webinar Jam, establishing and maintaining right relationships through human values. Aloha and welcome to today's GPS Paranormal Golden Age Hangout, a webinar series that we've been doing all week long, literally. And we've been presenting 4 people a day since Monday, talking about everything that you can talk about concerning the paranormal. Everything from food to psychic twins to UFOs, aliens, healing, connecting with people on the other side, even the movie called Maleficent, believe it or not. And then we have Kent Smith Adams, all the way out. Now, where do you live at anyhow, Kent?
I'm in Houston.
That's what I thought, Houston, and that's because you live working. But of course, NASA is in Houston, right? You work for Houston NASA, is that correct?
That's correct.
So you work for NASA, and we now, for those of you that don't know, I'm an internet radio show host, and I've been doing shows for over 4 years, Friday and Sunday nights, and literally I brought in Kent for an interview on her book Love Promise. Is that the name of the book?
Love Promise.
Yep, Love Promised, and so anyhow, about a very engaging romantic story of her and a lover from past lifetime, future lifetime. I don't know, one of those lifetimes, but from a future lifetime. And so they're going to be apparently the program is they're going to be getting together in the next lifetime, and they're going to be madly passionately in love with each other, and then live happily ever after. Okay, fine. So now, and welcome and thank you for being here, Kent. She's going to be talking about transcending love and time. Join Kent as she takes you on a journey of discovering how dying is nothing more than taking off a coat, and how love lives in the depths of our soul. The only thing that is real. She'll discuss from spiritual and scientific means how humans are on a course to learn more about their true nature, and in doing so, grief will be lessened when losing a loved one or even witnessing a tragedy. Her stories of past lives and even future ones are about of one's lifeline she is experiencing in one of many parallel universes. Human beings are simply in a trance to fulfill their destiny. Kent is the author of Love Promised, A Future Life Revealed. And now you have another book coming out, don't you?
I'm working on a book. It's called Solace Revealed. It's not an afterlife, it's just life. And I'm pretty excited about that. And I've got a good chunk of each chapter. But of course, you know, I have my day job, and of course, I'm a contractor to NASA, and not actually work, but I work directly with NASA. But I just wanted to clarify that. But I do. I'm enjoying working on this second book, and actually have a diagram that I'll have in that one too. So just hoping to move forward with the story and more information that I've received.
Got it, got it. Now, well, first of all, give us a little bit about yourselves. Let us know where you grew up and how you evolved in time, and then how you got to where you're at, and then we'll talk about transcending love and time. How's that?
That sounds good. Well, I'll start out by saying that something happened to me when I was a little girl that let me know that I was not my physical body. And just before I would go to sleep at night, I started feeling myself vibrate at an immense speed and just very slowly start to lift up out of my body. And in my little mind, it was quite frightening. It didn't seem normal. And the fear set in, and I was immediately back inside my body. Well, this would continue to happen, and then I would usually wake up, or not wake up, I would usually crawl in bed with my parents because I was frightened, and I would say one of those things is happening again. Or I would crawl into my closet and read a book because my sister in the room, you know, didn't want me to keep the light on. And so these experiences would continue, but I usually didn't remember anything but leaving and coming back. Now, my sister did tell me as an adult that, and when we were teenagers, she looked over at me one night and saw me sitting up in the bed and laying down in the bed at the same time. And of course, I'm not sure how she went to sleep that night, but anyway,
So,
these
so now
these
what I'm understanding you to say is that you were astral projecting. Is that what I hear you saying?
well, I guess everybody has their own definition, Andrew, but I felt totally separate from my physical body. So, what I know it is to be is an out of body experience. Not for sure what astral projection is, if they're one and the same or they're different, but
Well,
the research.
astral projection is when your energetic body leaves its physical body and literally separates parts and takes off and does something else.
Well, then maybe that's the same thing as an out of body experience because I felt my
I believe it is. But go ahead.
my consciousness was not in the physical body laying in the bed. It was in this body that was up moving around. And even one time, most of the time, I would feel the vibration, this very intense vibration, almost like a little mini rocket taking off. And then other times, I would just realize I was out of my body. For one instance, one night, I felt myself rolling off the side of the bed, and I wondered how I had fallen asleep so close to the edge of the mattress that I allowed that to happen. And so I literally braced myself in a fetal position, getting ready to hit the floor. And I didn't realize I was out of my body until I bounced off of the floor and started floating. And then I realized I was outside of my body. So, and other similar things like this, have happened. And then I write about a few stories in Love Promised, but most of the time it's usually just being aware that I'm leaving and coming back. But in the early 90s, I found a book called The Silver Cord Lifeline to the Unobstructed. And that was, of course, when I had my own children. And I literally cried when I read that book because it just made sense to me. It rang true to me. It explained what was happening to me, and I didn't feel crazy anymore. And then the other thing that I found out is that we all have out of body experiences every night when we go to sleep.
Yeah,
And I will back.
most people, or a lot of people do, is correct and true. Most people don't remember it, and a lot of times
Right.
you're in an astral body, but because when you wake up, all of a sudden you feel this vacuum energy, and all of a sudden you just feel like this and you're all of a sudden you're in body you're like right in your body right as you're waking up, but you don't realize that you're coming back into your body because from some kind of trip that you've taken off on or whatever.
Right. When I was 11 years old, I left my body so quickly that it didn't have time for the fear to set in. And I just remember feeling myself, flying at an immense speed, feet first, oddly enough. But it was the most beautiful experience. And I woke up the next morning and told my parents that I wasn't afraid to die. And after finding out that this happens to all of us at night, I thought it was very beautiful what was said in the book, and I'll just quote it here a minute. It says that the experience is typically screened from our conscious mind. We don't usually have a clear memory of it because um, this is so designed in order to maximize the challenges during our search for individual destiny. And then it goes on and talks more about that experience, the near-death experience, and it's just a really good book. I would highly recommend it to anyone to read. And it was
So now,
written by two licensed clinical psychologists.
got it. So now you're growing up, you're having these experiences, and now your parents don't understand, or they do understand these experiences.
Well, my father tried to help me throughout my life. They didn't look at me like I was crazy when I told them about this, which was very good for me as a child.
Supportive, yes.
Yes, they were very supportive. And then later on, when I was 16, my father introduced me to a philosophy of life called concept therapy that really talked about life from both perspectives of not just spirituality, but also science. And that really did help me, especially with practical day-to-day living. But that was a good philosophy to start out with when I was younger, but it didn't exactly touch on, the paranormal, the experiences that I was
Explain the
having.
astral projections. So okay, go ahead. And so you go to, I assume you're going to college and you're still experiencing this. Is that correct?
Yes, because I do remember going at that time when I was in college, the movie The Exorcist came out. And I went with my sister and a friend of hers. The three of us worked together. And I remember sitting in between them and I was frightened and they thought it was funny and I couldn't tell them, why it scared me so. But at that time, that was before I knew anything about out of body experiences, that I knew that we're actually connected with a silver cord, this etheric body, with our physical body, much the same as a baby in the mother's womb is connected
Exactly.
with an umbilical cord, as you know. So the design is very much the same.
Got it, got it. So, and it's funny because I've never seen that movie ever. I have never seen that movie. And the movie that frightened me the most, that scared me the most, I'll give you one guess. Planet of the Apes.
That one frightened you?
That was the most scariest movie I've ever experienced in my life, believe it or not.
And that was not
I
that
don't,
scary.
I don't know why, but it just did. But so anyhow, so you're going through, and you still don't have an understanding about these experiences. And so, what happens after that?
Well, that just moved into, went on with daily life, got married, had children, did the family thing. At that time I lived in the state of Kentucky. We moved to Texas, and that's where I've been since 1987. And a lot of the experiences, out of body experiences, I didn't remember so much. I don't know if it was just I was tired from being, a full-time mother, full-time working in the workforce,
Exactly.
or what. But every now and the experiences would happen, that would. But I started to feel more comfortable, especially one day when I was just taking a nap in my bedroom. No one was in the house but me, and it was during the daytime, and I was just kind of tired and then laid down to take a nap, and I felt the experience coming on. And this was after I'd read the book, so I started talking to myself to try to, okay, just don't be afraid. Let's just let it go, see what happens. And so I did, and then I just, left my body, floated all over the bedroom, and uh, floated down to the floor. I thought it was odd that my nose was in the carpet, and then all of a sudden my body went, straight like a diagonal, where it had just been floating around before. And interestingly, I read in a book that Bob Monroe had an experience like that, where his face was towards the floor and he was straight out, and he attributed it to the electromagnetic force,
Oh,
field
of the
force
planet.
of the planet. And so when I read that in his book, I went, "Oh wow, that's
Kind
why
of,
that
kind of
happened."
like a compass, which I never thought about that. Interesting.
I guess I really don't know,
Yeah,
but those are some.
well, if you look at a compass, it automatically points to north node, and no matter how you move around, that needle will keep pointing towards north node. So it's kind of like that, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Except
yeah,
your nose is pointing toward the north. I guess I don't know, but something like that. That's what it seems
right.
like.
I just remember my nose being in the carpet. I mean, and I just started laughing to myself because it just seemed so funny, that was happening. And then the door slammed. Somebody walked through the door, and I was, back in my body. And
Oh man, well, they
so
say if that happens too quick, sometimes you'll get a headache. You'll wake up with a headache or something like that. But I don't know. It's different for everybody.
it is. I have re-entered my body. I guess it was quickly because it was almost odd. This was a time sleeping on the couch, and oddly enough, I felt like I was a ping pong ball bouncing around inside my body till it just kind of settled in. And that's the only way I know, how to describe the feeling.
No
So,
kidding.
yeah, yeah.
So
But
now, go. Well, okay, go ahead. And I guess so. At this point, you still understand you do understand these experiences, or you don't understand these experiences at this point.
no, I do understand these experiences to a degree. I'd
No,
read
I'm
that.
talking about the experience you had. I guess you said you were taking a nap. I guess, and at the time, and you were a mother, and you said that you had another experience, and then at that point, are you saying you did understand what astral projection was, or whatever was going on? Is that what I hear you saying, or you still didn't?
No, I did. I did. I had read a book, and I was just curious. And it wasn't until later that I became aware that Bob Monroe started an institute, the Monroe Institute. But it wasn't until 2006 that I actually went there and took a Gateway Voyage class.
Got
So,
it. Got it. Okay.
mhm,
So,
yeah.
so you're a closet psychic, and you don't even know it yet. Okay, fine, whatever. So, but
Well,
anyhow,
we all are. We all are. Like Sonia Choquette says, 90% of us, are just muted.
yeah. Well, is it? Well, well, usually when they're born, and most kids, probably 99% of the kids that are born have been born throughout the years, have all been psychic, and but at some point they were staunch. That somebody just stopped them from
Right.
either developing that way or progressing that way or whatever, because they were scared or they didn't understand, or what, who knows all the reasons. But anyhow,
Right.
so most kids are staunched or stopped with that development process, and then they're not encouraged, and then they go on being quote unquote normal people.
Right.
And yet the normal people are really the ones that are really psychic and whatever else is going on. But in my opinion, so your mother, you're learning to deal with this, and then so how does the transcending time and love, all this come about for you?
Well, after a 25-year marriage ended, yeah, I was alone for a while, and then I was Russell came into my life, and Russell was the one that I write the book about. And
Okay.
Russell and I were together for about 3 years, and then he was killed in a car accident. And prior to this time, my father had passed away in 1995, and we'd had all kinds of experiences, with my dad. He was very metaphysical in nature, very progressive thinker, so I kind of came from a metaphysical background, but Russell's family, didn't. Um, but all kinds of experiences were happening, electrical
Like,
devices,
go ahead.
noises. He even appeared to his aunt. And I told, and this was all just within a few days, even at his funeral, I was looking to see what funeral spray that my company had sent. And I was walking down the row of sprays, and the funeral attendant said, "Ma'am, I'm sorry, we take the cards off the funeral sprays when we bring them outside." And I said, "Oh, okay." And so I turned around to walk away, and the very last spray fell over on top of me on my back. And the funeral attendant came over and said, "Oh, I'm sorry, I apologize." And as he was lifting the spray back off of me, I turned around, and the card was still on the spray, and I pulled it out, and it had my company's name on it. And then the paper that had Russell's eulogy, his obituary written, was thrown in the yard of his uncle, who lived in Kilgore, Texas, and his uncle didn't even subscribe to the paper, nor had it
Oh,
ever been
wow, interesting.
thrown in his yard. And so in the book, we just got multiple stories of
Now,
ways that.
believe this, catch, and this is back in 1995. Is that what you said?
Well, 1995 was when my father, I don't even like to use the word die anymore, when my father crossed over.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
we had experiences with him, and one interesting story with him, he actually appeared to my brother-in-law, and who worked for NASA and was a total skeptic that anything like this
Probably
was
scared the
possible.
crap out of them, I bet.
Well, actually it didn't, and that was what really surprised him so. He said, "I thought I would have just really been frightened,
Jump,
but I was as calm as could be."
jump out of the
And
seat.
well, and he just we asked him then. We said, "Oh, was it an apparition? Was it a ghost? What was it? What did you see?" And he said it was if your father was standing there in the flesh and blood. And
Like
so
he, like
that was
he
an
can almost
interesting.
touch him.
My brother-in-law used to tease his wife, my sister, and me about reading books about the afterlife. So after that happened, he didn't tease us anymore.
So he could see him like he could touch him almost. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, he was just within about 5 feet, and he
Wow.
said he looked at him, and he said he smiled real big. He noticed that he had teeth because my father was elderly when he passed away, and he usually didn't wear his false teeth, and uh, and so he said this big bright light came out of his mouth, and it came towards him, and my brother-in-law looked down, and by the time that the light hit him, he looked up, and my dad was gone.
Wow. Wow. Interesting. So, are you still there? Oh no. What happened? Oh no. I think we got. Hang on. Oh no. So, we're gonna wait a couple of minutes and see if we can get Kent back in. Somehow she may have booted herself out. I don't know what, but I'll see if we can get her back in here and go from there. Let me see. Wow. So that's very interesting. Anyhow, I don't know. She hit a button or something. Oh, you gotta be kidding! Are you kidding me? Really? Today? The very last present. Ouch! I don't know what's going on. So anyhow, we're gonna go ahead and continue with this, and hopefully we'll bring in Kent soon enough. I'm not sure if oh, okay, good.
Oh, sorry about that.
I don't know what the heck happened, but I
Well,
was hoping
I
you would
know.
figure that out.
Well, I actually saw an email come up, and I was trying to close out my mail, and I ended up just closing us out.
The
So
whole
let me
thing, I
close.
know.
Yeah.
So, so good. So your now you said your uncle, right? All of a sudden becomes a believer, and you're having, and then your the last partner that you were involved with passes away, and then there's stuff going on with him too as well. All these
Right.
strange.
Right. And I asked uh, I asked Russell's dad if he wanted to go see this good psychic medium north of town where we had been many times to communicate with our father. And so we did, and they were really kind of blown away. We knew without a doubt that Russell was in the room talking with us for an hour and a half. And so we ended up um, before Russell had was killed in the car accident. I had this Ouija board that at one time we wanted to try and talk with our father, but it really didn't work at that time. So the board went up into the closet, and but when Russell and I were living together, all kinds of interesting things were happening. Sound going off in their room, and I told him about what was happening, and he just like, okay, But it happened one time when he was there that the music went up very loud on the stereo, and his eyes got big as saucers. And I said, oh well, that's what's been happening. He said, well, we're going to get that Ouija board out and find out who that is. And so thus began a 2 week long every night session on the Ouija board during the Christmas holidays. And so fast forward then after Russell died and we had that session with the psychic
Wait, wait,
medium.
wait, wait, wait. Wait a minute. Who was it, or did you find out?
Oh yeah, we found out, and we communicated. Letters formed words, words formed sentences, sentence formed messages, and it was an American Indian. He gave us his name, but we just ended up giving him our own name. So, but it was kind of fun, and time went by, and we got busy with our jobs, and the holidays were over. So we put the board back up in the closet, and it wasn't brought out again until after Russell died, and we'd left that session with the psychic medium, and I thought, well, maybe I know that Oracle still has his energy on it, and maybe we could try communicating with him ourselves. And so we did. And that was in 2005, and we've pretty much been communicating with him since then. Although I'm told that, the communication on the board is going to stop soon, and there are other things in my life that are going to be happening, and so
Well,
we'll see what that's
so
going
you,
to do.
okay, so you haven't learned how to communicate with him in spirit form yet, or via telepathy yet.
Well, I will say this, and his father as well, and it only worked with the two of us really well. And we asked Russell how this was happening. He said heat and energy moving very, very quickly. He said they impinge the thoughts onto our brain, and then it's spelled out. And so, sure, over time, we started getting messages telepathically, and then we would later confirm, on the board, yes, that's what I said. And so it's one of those things that you really have to start practicing and using. It's like you strengthening a
Mm-hmm.
muscle for anyone who believes that that can happen. And we all have intuitions, inclinations, deja vu moments, and even those little miracles that happen in our life every
Absolutely.
day. So it's like, it's something you just have to want to be more interested in, pay attention to, but
Exactly.
a couple things where I think it's important are, and I compare it in the book to kind of like having the Verizon Wireless. You've got a whole group of people just waiting for you to ask for help, and we've been told that in the Bible all along. Ask and you shall receive. So I don't think we're really taking advantage of all the help that we have on the other side.
Or
That
help those others on the other side as well. And
exactly.
now, when you're saying you're hearing messages, are you literally hearing him speak, or are you intuitively picking up the messages?
I am intuitively picking up the message.
Got it, got it. So you're
Yeah.
like picking them up from the etherics, and then either their message, or you just have an understanding of what's being said,
Right.
and you're right. Who was it? One of the women that I was interviewed. She said all of a sudden she started talking to ghosts, and all of a sudden they go, she can hear us. So all of a sudden they started getting in the line so that they could start working with her and telling her all kinds of
Right.
messages to give to her, the families or whoever. So yeah, if ghosts know that you can hear them and understand them, they'll line up, and they'll wait their turn so that you can connect with them, so that you can get messages to the other side or whatever. But
That's
and
right.
on the other hand, you're right on, not just ghosts, but angels and saints and fairies and all the elementals and gnomes and all that stuff. They will work with you also as well, and that's the whole idea. But yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, yeah, that's it's more like intuitive messages, and you just tune in, and you can get the messages, and usually the positive messages are coming from your spirit guide or your angels, and if it's any kind of negative thought, of course, it's definitely coming from the ego. But we all have that capability, and I'm told that 60% of the messages that people get, they just slough it off as a coincidence, and that there are really only 10% that get the guidance and really follow through, with the message.
Got it.
So,
Got it.
but there are those that are more gifted, I think, that can actually see and hear the voice. Now, there have been a couple times where Ron and I have heard an actual voice, and but those, a couple other stories. But what I'd really like to get into and talk about more is the um, the parallel universes, if you wanted to. Gosh, we still got what,
Oh,
another
well, we
30
got
minutes?
plenty of time. Yeah, we
We
got
got
plenty of
plenty
time.
of time.
Absolutely.
Okay, okay.
So wherever
Well,
you
I'll
want to go.
let you. Okay. Um, I guess what's important to me after all these experiences that I've had is the the way that we can really help those who have lost loved ones, because there's so many people that are thinking that they've buried the loved one and their loved one is in the ground and they're grieving. And it's really becoming a passion of mine to help people understand that death is a part of life and it's not the end to who we are. And this whole experience was an impetus for me getting certified last year as a grief recovery specialist through the Grief Recovery Institute. They have a wonderful method for helping heal grief or helping people deal with their grief. And of course, losing a loved one is the extreme of that. And then, so that's the direction that I would like to move in, is to really help other people understand that death, is a part of life.
Well, it's actually a healing property, literally a healing phase for people, and then you move on to the next lifetime, to the next body, or whatever else. So
Right.
to me, and it's a to me, it's a celebration. I don't even grieve anymore. When I was 10 years old, my brother died in an in a fire accident. Our whole house burnt down, and he was still
Oh,
there.
wow.
And so I went through the whole lesson plan, learning about death and grieving and all that stuff. And so, and now to me, it's just a celebration. Somebody's graduated, and now they get to move on to their next program, their next mission, and lucky you, see you later, bye. So it's like that.
Well, and that's beautiful that you can look at it that way, and but there's so many out there that don't, because we are all programmed from the time we're little. And religion has played a lot in a lot of people's roles in life, and there hasn't always been this understanding of death. And so that's why I think we kind of need a new understanding of death. And it was very interesting. Just Friday night, I was watching. There was a panel that it actually was Intelligence Squared. It was a forum in New York, and the topic was, this particular topic was, death is not final. And there were two people that were for it, and there were two people that were against it. And so you've got a lot of people in the scientific community, particularly those that are involved in just the basic fundamental science, not so much those that are involved in theoretical science, but just fundamental scientists. And you had Dr. Stephen Novella, who's uh, uh, graduated from Yale, and he co-founded the um, New England Skeptical Society. And then
Hmm.
also Steve Carroll, who's a physicist out at Caltech, and he's a Harvard graduate. And he too, I mean, they both think that when the brain dies, that's it. And and they were against the topic that death is final, or death is not final was a topic, so they were against that. They think death is final. And the other two who were for it were two, I know you've heard, Dr. Raymond Moody, who's been a pioneer with out-of-body experiences and near-death experiences for 4 decades now.
Wow.
And then also Eben Alexander, who has been was a neurosurgeon who had a near-death experience in 2012, and he was one that had been a total skeptic. For other patients, he thought that these experiences that they came back and told about were just figments of their imagination. And then he had his own experience, and it's completely transformed his life. And of course, he wrote a book called you know, Proof of Heaven,
Hmm.
and heard him, I had a chance to hear him speak and at the Edgar Casey Institute here in Houston. Really enjoyed that. But this was a good panel discussion, because there are, those hardcore skeptics that have that deal with just matter and what we can see with our physical eyes, even though we know that matter only constitutes 5% of our universe, and we are still trying to figure out what constitutes the other 95%.
Yeah,
We
no
know
kidding.
it's dark energy, we know it's dark matter, we know that dark energy is causing our universe to expand, but we're really just trying to figure out what these other, energies are.
No,
So it's
I'll tell you a couple experiences that I had. One was when I was there in Texas, and by the way, I've been to Kilgore, Texas before and did some work there. But
have you?
yeah, but right. In fact, right after that, back in the '90s, we were parked. Me and some cousins of mine were parked at a 7-Eleven, one of those places, and then I was waiting for them in the car. All of a sudden, I was sitting there and I was just staring into this glass, into the Kmart. All of a sudden, like a hole, like a wormhole or whatever, just opened up like a black hole. And all of a sudden, I just took off. My astral body just took off, and all of a sudden, there was like these stars going, just going flying by. And I don't know where I was going, but I took off, and I didn't understand that whole experience, but it was really interesting, and just the idea of doing space travel, and that's what it felt like to me. In that way was very, very interesting. And then years later, a few years later, I had a woman by the name of Amachi, the hugging saint. I don't know if she's actually due to be there in Dallas, Texas, in about a week. But anyhow, I was doing a meditation and she was doing a retreat at the time, and all of a sudden she came to me and then she took me. We took off and we went into what you call the void. So we went into all the darkness, and I was there, for a minute or two or something like that. But it was like it was a different type of darkness from being dark. When you're in your place and it's really dark, it versus this particular darkness they weren't the same. When you're in a house and it's dark, there a lot of times there's entities there. There's beings, there's ghosts or whatever, and that's what makes it so scary, because these beings are there and you don't know what the heck they're doing there. But in this darkness that we're again, she took me out and we took off into the void. I don't know where we're at, but it wasn't the same. It was just like a peacefulness, maybe a gentleness, I guess, and it was just basically just something waiting to happen. It's just waiting there, matter, just waiting for something to happen. That's all it was, just consciousness waiting to
Interesting.
happen. And so that's what it
Interesting.
felt like to me. So it was, and then after that, I really wasn't worried about the, darkness, because I remember when I was a kid, I used to be afraid to be in the dark, because I probably was picking up all these entities that were around, and I didn't understand that, but that's one. So.
Well, that's the big debate now, is if our consciousness is, uh, and most of those in metaphysics know or think that, in the theoretical physicists, in fact, I heard Michio Kaku talking with Deepak Chopra about it, non-local consciousness, and Eben Alexander was mentioned on the panel the other night. The big debate is that they think that the brain uh, creates the mind. The mind does what the brain does, and that's it. And we're finding now that we're looking more into the subatomic world, and how particles behave differently from that on the atomic world. We're really starting to think, and when I say we, I'm talking about what I'm hearing as far as the scientists are concerned, because I'm not a scientist, I'm not a theologian,
Exactly.
so, but I've had interesting experiences that have just given me this thirst for wanting to know more, particularly more
The,
about this being outside of the body.
well,
And
be the spaces in between, I think, is what we're talking about. I'm not sure, but that's what it seems like.
right, yeah, we're looking to find, we're still trying to understand light. Scientists are still trying to understand gravity, and of course, gravity is a sound science now. Interestingly enough, Isaac Newton, when he was trying to help his fellow man understand gravity 400 years ago, he was accused of dealing with the occult because it was something invisible. And so he called it, as far as gravity and the planets and the orbits, he called it spooky action at a distance, he called it action at a distance. And when
Mm,
Einstein came along and they started looking at the way subatomic particles behaved and how they can, exchange energy that seems to be faster than the speed of light, that's when Einstein said, that's spooky action at a distance. So, we're still trying to learn more about the brain, and we're trying to learn more about the cosmos too. And it's interesting to see, to watch the new discoveries that are being made in both
Yeah,
of
no,
those fields. And
absolutely.
yeah, it's very interesting. And the brain, the consciousness is not local to the brain, and that's the thing that we're finding more. And we're almost starting to think that consciousness and this quantum field of energy is one and the same. So it'll really be interesting to see, some of the outcomes of I think, what did Obama uh, signed off on $100 million to study the brain, to map the brain, and it's
Wow.
primarily being done to study the brain, to learn more. How do we think? How do we learn? And how to help people who have, disabilities and diseases, and then um, and then studying the cosmos, we're really reaching out there. Every theoretical scientist is trying to figure out what dark energy and dark matter are. So we're really living in some interesting times, and I'm told that in 2019 parallel universes will be proven. And Michio Kaku even says, on a show I was watching on the universe, he said, we know that there are parallel universes. They're even talking about 11 different dimensions. He said,
Oh,
we
I
just,
think there's more than that. Apparently, a guy by the name of Joshua David Stone has stipulated that there's I think either 29 or 37 different universes. So I mean we're up to at least 29 minimum. So will
well,
we
I,
ever
I'm being
cross all those? I don't know.
Well, I'm being told that there are 11 and that a 12th one is gradually reforming. I'm told that universes 11 and 1 with folds in space and time that they touched, and that's what humans think of as the Big Bang.
Mm,
Uh, I'm told that when it all settles back down, that this veil that is now there will go away. But I'm told that they touch. That's what caused the Big Bang. Universe 12 is gradually reforming, and and then I'm learning, when I'm looking at the results of what scientists are figuring out, they're saying that there are 11 parallel universes.
oh,
So
interesting.
I'm
Now,
I'm sure.
I don't know how Joshua David Stone came across this number of universes, but that's what he stated. And so
Okay.
is it true? I don't know. Is there more universes that still need to be uncovered? I don't know. It's undetermined. But the point is, I think we're making progress, and so that's a good thing, and that's a really good thing.
Right. Right. And I am told that I think there's a big question out there now. Would we be able to travel through wormholes to these other dimensions? And um, my spirit guide, Thomas, has told me that we can, the soul travels through other dimensions all the time without having the death experience. But humans couldn't travel through wormholes because the human body would break apart.
Oh, really? Really interesting.
That's what I'm
Um,
told.
well, now, but and it's probably possible that we'll be able to later on when we're able to develop vessels or whatever to be able to do that with. But right now, that's a good point. Did you
hmm
turn off the light just now?
Should I turn it back on?
No,
I
turn it
don't,
back on.
okay. Oddly, it's a light that works sometimes and it doesn't. So I'm sorry. I turned it back off. We'll just have to wait for it to come back on.
Okay. Well, anyhow, so have you watched the movie God's Not Dead yet?
No, I haven't.
You haven't? Oh my God, you should go watch it. But it was a really interesting argument about, is God dead? Does that God really is God really a reality or not? And an argument with a freshman student with his philosophy teacher. And so it was pretty amazing movie. But anyhow, again, what determines dead? And I guess that's a good question for you. What is what when somebody's dead? What does that mean versus what somebody's passed on or transcended? What does that mean?
Well, see, I don't believe in death. I believe that everything is energy and everything is vibrating, and we proven that on the atomic level. And then 100 years ago, when we broke down the atom and discovered electrons, protons, and neutrons, we discovered that they were all vibrating. And then we broke them down even more in the 50s and discovered that there were quarks. And so now they are really trying to find what was going to back, I think, in the early 90s, the smallest particle that makes up our universe, and they call it the Higgs boson particle, and some people will call it the God particle. So I think eventually it will be discovered that and of course our human bodies are made up of all the same chemical properties of the earth itself. So in my opinion, even when our body disintegrates and there are ashes, it is still energy vibrating at some level. And of course, it's my belief too that these physical bodies are really nothing more than costumes that we wear in this play of life, and we can have more than one play in our life. When I talk about the um, parallel universes in this diagram that I'm trying to complete for my next book, I talk in there about how, as a soul, we have a lifeline and we can have more than one lifetime on several timelines in a parallel in several parallel universes. And I know that sounds complicated, and that's why I'm putting what I know and what I've learned in a diagram to maybe make it a little bit more understandable. But we can have, what I'm told, as a soul, up to 6 different lifetimes. And they're in these parallel universes, 6 of them are our past, and 6 of them are our future. And they are interconnected. And and you probably heard, I'm told too, that there really is no such thing as time. All of the parallel universes are pretty much on the outskirt, and they all point to this place that we call heaven that has its own levels of being. And this level of being where we call heaven is the only thing that's real. I'm told that these where we are playing out our roles in life, Andrew and Kent, that these are nothing more than, plays, and we're actors in a play, and we are pretty much in a trance to fulfill our destiny. So, and
Well, you're gonna like this. You're gonna like this. And in fact, I was just talking about this earlier on the Golden Age Music Show right before we came to your presentation. But and one of the things that I've been working with for the last several years is a being by the name of Heaven on Earth. Literally, it's a Mahatma, and I don't know if you know what a Mahatma is, but a Mahatma is a group of beings that have come together to form one soul, one voice, one person, one entity. So anyhow, for the last few years, one of my missions has been to ground and help bring in this Mahatma called Heaven on Earth to Earth, to ground it so that everybody can experience this. And it's not that I'm doing it. And actually all of us are doing this, but I'm just helping bring people. Um, I'm just a messenger. I'm just helping people to understand that so that they can do that for themselves. And everybody's actually doing this with me, but very few people understand it, or they just they can't get it. So anyhow, and then it's funny because a guy by the name Paul Armitage, what I was the guy that I was telling you about earlier, he came out with this album called Heaven on Earth, and him and I have never ever talked about this Mahatma ever. And then another guy that I know from Australia that I brought into the webinar series, he too has doing a thing on Heaven on Earth. And then recently, a movie, I think it was called Heaven on Earth or something like that, just came out back in April. So all this stuff is like coming together into one parallel, and it's just lining up. And then, I don't know where it's going to go to from here, but people, should realize that heaven's here now. You know, it's not up there in this etherics, and not up in the sky, and it's not anywhere else. It's a consciousness. It's an you know, a way of life, a way of breathing, a way of being. So it's here now. So why not just go with it and breathe it and live it and be it, and just and enjoy it while we're here.
Every night we leave our bodies, we are, you know, experiencing ourselves in another costume in another parallel universe. Is pretty much what I'm told. And so right now, I'm told that you know, that I am 5 other people existing, because we are well, as Daniel Brinkley said, we are a mighty spiritual being. We don't even, with our human mind, can't conceive of actually who we are on this other level. But we are the directors of our own play and of all these lifelines, the one lifeline of all the timelines that we're existing on. And so it really is very interesting, and sounds interesting what you say. And when you said Mahatma, um, I love the quote that he said, Mahatma Gandhi. He
Hmm.
said, "Each night when I go to sleep, I die, and the next morning when I wake up, I'm reborn." And it's very interesting. Of course, we all know the quote by Pierre Teilhard de Chardin that says we are all spiritual beings having a human experience, not human beings having a spiritual experience. So, you know, whether you look at it from a scientific perspective or you're looking at it from a more, you know, spiritual perspective or religious perspective, there's more and more that it's coming together. We're going to understand ourselves more, and we're going to do that through science and through spirituality, and that's going to happen, and then we will understand why we're in a trance to fulfill our destiny. So,
So
and
now,
in Jesus.
no, go ahead, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, if you looked at it from, you know, the perspective of religion, Jesus appeared once he died on the cross to let us know that he wasn't dead. And he spoke to Mary Magdalene, he spoke to his apostles, and he said these things, you know, pretty much, "He who believes in me, the works that I do, he will do also, and greater works than these." So I truly think that Jesus, one of our greatest avatars, was trying to set an example for us. He was trying to be a role model. He was trying to teach us that we don't die, you know, through those experiences. And I think it was probably his etheric body that people were seeing, because I don't think we could probably understand 1,000 years ago the etheric body, you
Mm.
know, like we understand it today, even though, you know, Socrates had a beautiful quote. I've got it here. I'll quote it. I've got it in my book. I just love it. And he lived in the 400s BC. He said,
Mm.
"Death may be the greatest of all human blessings. To fear death, my friends, is only to think ourselves wise without being wise.
Mm.
For
Exactly.
for it is to think that we know what we do not know. For anything that men can tell, death may be the greatest good that can happen to them. But they fear it as if they know quite well, or knew quite well, um, that it was the greatest of evils. And what is this but that shameful ignorance of thinking that we know what we do not know?" And that was Socrates back then,
Exactly. Exactly.
and a famous classical philosopher. And then even, you know, 2,300 years later, a well-known physicist, Charles Townes, he says some people would say that because we don't know, it can't be. I would say that because we don't know, we don't know. And
Mm.
so it was interesting to listen to Dr. Novella and Steve Carroll the other night, who are highly respected physicists and doctors in their field. Um, but there are some that are choosing to stick to the hardcore science, and not thinking beyond that. And you know, it may or may not.
Well, check this out. Check this out. And I think these guys are going to be knocked off their socks. I think is what's going to happen. But a guy by the name of Benjamin Krim. Do you know who that is?
I've
Have you
heard of
heard of?
him.
So I've done a lot of work. A lot of the foundation that I work with has to do with the Alice Bailey works. A woman that she received a lot of telepathic information from a man by the name of a master by the name of Jwal Kul, who lived, I think, may actually be in the physical body there now, but anyhow, in the Himalayan mountains. And then I'm not sure if she was in England or Russia or whatever, but he was imparting to her a whole book series, like 16 books, 18 books of information to her, called Alice Bailey Works, or I can't remember. Anyhow, she wrote all this down, and then all the Theosophical Society put it all together. So anyhow, but anyhow, a lot of the works that Benjamin Krim puts out are based upon her works as well. But he turns around and Maitreya Buddha, I believe, has imparted to him lots of information, prophecies, and or forecasts that have come to pass over the years. And one of them has to be with eventually what's going to happen is we'll be communicating with people on the other side with a radio or something like that. And it's going to be very common, and we're going to just be able to have a normal conversation with your dad, with Russell, over the phone or whatever. I don't know, but it's going to be, and I don't know how close that is, but it's around the corner. I'm sure.
Well, I've been told that there are wavelengths that we are not aware of yet.
Oh, really, really? So they haven't tapped into. I figured that they may have had tapped into all that, but I guess not. Anyhow.
Oh, well, I don't know about you, who
Yeah,
you're
yeah.
talking about, but I'm just talking about what I've been told,
Got it,
that.
got it. Yeah. So anyhow, we got about 5 minutes left. Is there anything you want to tell us before? Oh, first of all, if people want to get a hold of you for a conference, for a presentation, to do a presentation, how would, or whatever, what would they do that, or how do they do that? And while you're doing that, I'll be back in a second. But go ahead, tell us all
Okay.
that.
The best way to get in touch with me is to send me an email at kent@universallifestrings.com, and that is the name of my company, and also my website. And the email is on my website. And I don't know if Andrew uh, might have mentioned it, but I will be offering my book, Love Promised: A Future Life Revealed, for I think 99 cents. I tried to select it for free on Amazon.com, where you can order both a hard copy and can get an electronic copy downloaded. The ebook right now is $3.33, and then between July I think it's the 19th through the 26th, I've got it selected to be just 99 cents if there's anybody that is interested in reading more about this adventure that I've been on since 2005. And it's been quite interesting, quite exciting, and it took me 3 years to decide to write the book because I use both sides of my brain. I'm an analytical person, and most of the people that I work with in the industry that I work, are not so involved in metaphysics. But it's interesting, though, that when I told my story to some people, such as one an astronaut, I met an Ivy League professor at a conference I was at, an Air Force colonel that I worked with, a radio show host, and even my boss. Uh, it's interesting how people have their own paranormal story that they've never shared with anyone else. So it's very interesting. I don't think our stories are unique. I think the more that we come out and share our stories with other people, that this is not going to be uh, outside of the box or be considered paranormal anymore. And I do have a quote that I would like to end up with, and I thought it was pretty interesting, pretty fascinating, brilliant. Dr. Michael Persinger, who is doing studies on out-of-body experiences with the Laurentian University in Sudbury, Canada. And he said, and I quote, "For the last 400 years, the paranormal has included what in large part is science today. So that's the fate of the paranormal. It becomes science and it
Is,
becomes normal.
isn't that the truth? Exactly. Absolutely. Absolutely. I hear you
Yeah.
100%. So I want to thank you for being here, Kent. You've imparted to us a lot of valuable information, and I think people they need to think about what's going on with their lives. And there's a lot of excitement out there about lots of stuff going on, and there's a lot of activity going on out there, and people if they would just just check it out and just become more aware and be more in tune. They too can be a part of all this if they want to be, but that's up to them. Anyhow, definitely we'll talk to you some more about your next book and some other stuff coming down the pike, and then we'll just go from there.
Great.
Happy Father's Day, by the way.
Oh, thank you. I've been a father at some point in my lifeline.
I'm sure, exactly. Thank all of you for being here. Have a God Goddess week. Be the love that you are, always have been, and always will be. Aloha.